being honest, there are few things in pilot training that evoke more fear and misunderstanding than power on stalls and spins. Part of that is because we as pilots spend a great deal of time trying to avoid something that we don't fully understand. But trying to avoid something that we don't understand is like trying to walk next to a cliff in the dark. So today we're going to take the Luscombe up and look at different flavors of power on stalls and spins and the chain of cause and effect that connects them all together. Because a spin isn't magic, it isn't random, it begins with an airplane that's stalled and then yawing, and finally a pilot who hasn't fully understood what's happening. So let's get started.
All right, everyone, welcome aboard. We've got weather, NOTAMs, checklists all complete. We're going to depart runway 02 at Wahoo here, head to the west practice area to get started on our power on stalls and spins. And I'm going to put a little timestamp here. You can jump ahead to get out to the maneuvers. I'm going to talk through what I would normally talk through in ground school with my students on the departure and climb to get started. So if you want to skip ahead of that, feel free. And here we go. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 77903 is departing runway 02 to the west, Wahoo. Alright, got a quartering tailwind. Gonna have a good stiff little left crosswind here on takeoff. Left crosswind's really not my favorite in the Luscombe here in the left seat, but I gotta pull the stick towards my leg here. But we're looking at the sock, looking good. Bring up the power, pressure's good, temperature's in the green, airspeed's alive. Dip comes forward, right wheel wants to come up. 55, there we go. I'm guessing with these cumulus clouds in front of us and around us, we're going to have a bit of a bumpy flight, but we'll see what we get. Pressure, temperature's in the green, head on the swivel. Looking good, trim. It's bumpy. And we're looking good here. Still a lot of brown fields here, even though it's May in Nebraska. Still plenty of places to land. We couldn't make it back to the field. And we're clear to the left. Almost to turning altitude, 300 below pattern. There we go, clear left, turning left. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 77903, left crosswind, 02, west departure, Wahoo. We'll angle it northwest just a little bit. Winds out of the northwest today. At altitude, 2,000, climbing, I'd guess 7,000 here. See what we can get. Get as many spins done as we can. Okay, climb checklist. Good. Coming up out of the boundary layer. Pretty well smoothing out a little bit. Might actually be fine. Alrighty, well, in the last video, we looked at stalls in general, and several of you commented that you'd like to hear more about power on stalls, and I kind of neglected those in that video, but I think mixing them with spins will actually be good, because a lot of the fear I think that comes from doing power on stalls is from the fear of getting into a spin. So I think they'll work together pretty good. So let's talk about the power on stall compared to the power off stall. Of course, we know that the power on stall aerodynamically is the same thing, right? We exceed the critical angle of attack. In this case, we pull the stick back too far and the airplane stalls. Now the question is, does that happen with the power back at a nice low pitch attitude, or does it happen at a nice high pitch attitude? And that pitch attitude makes a big difference. Now the one aerodynamic difference, minus say the gyroscopics and all the other turning tendencies, is that the tail is more effective, right? So when we do a power on stall, if we are paying attention to where the stick is as we're bringing it back, the airplane is probably, in the case, especially an airplane like this with the elevator back there in the prop wash, we're probably going to get the stall sooner with less stick back because the tail is more effective with the prop blast over it. So it won't take as much stick to get the airplane stalled. And that's why we can't solely rely on stick position to tell us when we're going to stall. Now I think there is one stick position that we could all agree on is a stall, and that's with the stick all the way back. We'll certainly see that today. And that's what I was getting at in the last video. If you've got the stick all the way back, right, you're headed for stall territory. So anywho, a good little bump there. Right, so we'll be pulling the stick back, we'll get the stall. Now, two of the biggest things I think I see working with students on power on stalls, the first is this kind of fear of when is it going to happen, right? Because you got the nose up, you got the power in, you're trying to keep it coordinated, the airplane feels kind of tipsy-turvy, right? You're low on control authority because you're slow. The pitch is up, so you feel like there's a lot to lose in terms of pitch attitude. And so I get a lot of people, they're real hesitant to pull, right? It's like, when is it going to happen? Well, it's going to happen when you pull the stick back far enough, right? And not a moment sooner. So, if you're doing power on stalls and you feel like they're taking forever, and you've already had the nose up for a while, finish it off. Come on, get the stick back, do a stall, and then you can push forward, and you can recover. So, yeah, it's not going to stall till you make it stall. And then the next thing is what's going to happen, the fear of what's going to happen if I'm not coordinated and I'm not wings level. And yes, and we'll look at this today in detail, but you can absolutely enter a spin from a power on stall. That is certainly possible. But I think there's also some benefit in seeing, which we'll demonstrate today, what happens when we do a power on stall when we're not coordinated. And I think you'll find it interesting. So we'll be looking at that. Let's see here, we're 4,500 feet. We're really not that far from Wahoo because we've got the wind in our face here. So hey, we got more time now, we can talk about spins. So as I mentioned in the introduction, right, we know that a spin requires two ingredients. Requires being stalled, requires yaw, which we'll accomplish today, usually with rudder. So you have to have those two ingredients, and as you saw in the last video and as you'll see today, if you don't have yaw and the airplane's coordinated, it's not going to spin. You have to get something going in that department to get the airplane to spin. So, right, two ingredients required. Now you can have one or the other, right? You can have a stall and be coordinated. Well, we know what happens there. And you can be uncoordinated and not have a stall, and that could end up, if you're close to the stall regime or you got the nose down, you could be headed towards a steep spiral. You can read about those. Turn down the radio. But we have to have those two together to spin the airplane. And the next thing are going to be the three phases of a spin. The first is going to be the incipient phase as we enter the spin. And then we'll have the mature phase where the airplane is established in the spin and we're just trucking around, turning. And then we'll have the recovery. So in a couple of our demonstrations, we're going to look at those three phases because there's distinct differences between each one. And then the recovery, right? And of course we have the PARE acronym, or the TARE acronym, P-A-R-E, and it's a really good acronym. It stands for power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite the turn, and then elevator forward. And PARE is good, and it's a good general concept acronym. Of course, if your airplane has specific procedures, follow that. Don't use PARE. right? So you got to be schooled on what your particular airplane needs. The Luscombe loves PARE, works great. So that's what we'll be using today. Although I'd like to kind of add a little step in there. I'd like to add an extra little R. And that R stands for rudder neutral. So what you're going to see today is when we do a spin, we're going to go power idle, ailerons neutral, and both of those usually will already be done because we're going to be doing them usually power off, not always, but so P and A will already be complete. And then we have rudder opposite the turn because we'll be holding it into the spin. But then the next R is rudder neutral. So once we get the spin stopped, then we have to re-coordinate the airplane. Then we can let the elevator forward and recover. And I've done a lot of spins with students, and most of them are holding that right. Let's say we do a spin to the left, and we're going around, and we're going around, and we're going around, and power's idle, ailerons neutral. And they go right rudder to stop the spin. Well, I've had multiple times we're going around to the left, they hold right rudder, I try to get them to back off, but they're stepping on it, and then the airplane spins off to the right. So, you gotta go rudder neutral once the spin stops, then you can ease the elevator forward, get the airplane flying again, and off you go. So we'll be looking for that as well, that rudder neutral after we get the spin stopped. So usually when I'm doing a spin recovery, I'm usually staring at the dirt because we're pretty well nose down as we go around in the spin. But as I come neutral on the rudders as the spin stops, I'm usually taking a glance or two at the ball, just in a split second, to see, hey, am I actually coordinated now that I've got the spin stopped? And I'll just take a quick glance, where's the ball, help me center it up so that I get a nice clean recovery out of the dive. And that brings up another topic of these recoveries, right? And we can talk about these till we're blue in the face and practice them. But remember, when you're in the traffic pattern, you cannot afford to stall. You cannot afford to spin. You certainly can't afford to spin. A stall is bad, but a spin is worse in the traffic pattern. And people have survived that, but that doesn't mean you will. Doesn't mean I will. And so our best strategy in the pattern is avoidance. Now, if you get into it in the pattern, then yes, absolutely recover as quick as possible. Just kind of a disclaimer here to say that, right, if you get into a spin in the pattern, you're screwed. Now, the best way to avoid that is to go out and do spins, which is what I'm doing today. And I hope that if you haven't done them before, that you find a qualified airplane with a qualified instructor, and you go up and practice them. And I think once you practice them, you'll find that in terms of just the experience, it might not be as scary as you think, and it might be the cues that tell you that it's happening might be a little more obvious than you think. I've noticed that a lot working with instructors doing spin endorsements. And one of the big exercises I do once we do a few spins and they're comfortable with it is that I then take the controls and start practicing turns and then heading for a spin, and then the instructor candidate then takes over and practices recovering. And I can't tell you how many of them have said, Dave, thank you so much for giving me the chance to stop you from doing a spin. And now that I've seen it, it's way more obvious to me than I expected. So, familiarity at high altitude is the best strategy for avoidance at low altitude. Okay, we made it to 7 grand. We still have a good margin on the cloud deck here. I'm going to level off here. And we're going to do our best to work on some power on stalls here to start us out here. Check my list. I'm good here. Okay, so first thing I talked about, we already talked about it in the in the climb out talk here. I'm going to do a clearing turn here. I'm just going to make a 360 while I talk through this. The first thing I'm going to show you is what happens if we put the airplane up high in pitch attitude, but don't get the stick all the way back, right? And this is what I was getting at. I think I might even start with descent here. We're a little close to the clouds. Show you what happens if we don't get the stick back, and the airplane's not going to stall, but it probably is going to flop over the top and start coming down without stalling. So we're going to look at that, but my main point that I'm getting at is you got to pull the stick back to make the airplane stall. We've been having an unusually cold spring here in Nebraska, and it is chilly up here. I got the heater running full steam, and so we'll see what that does for us. But as we start doing these maneuvers, it's gonna get chilly in here. Okay. All right, we descended 500 feet, clearing the area, not seeing anybody. So let's start with the ain't gonna stall. So we pull back on the stick, raise the nose, we coordinate it. Airplane's climbing. We get the airplane slowed down to about 50, and I'm just gonna stop pulling here. And the airplane lowers the pitch attitude and says, I can't sustain this, right? Doesn't stall. Then I can pull back some more, hold the stick back further. Not to the stall point. Airplane comes over the top, still fully maneuverable, still flying, right? So I still haven't gotten the stick all the way back. So what you want to do is you get the stick back, and you maybe feel the airplane start to sigh a little bit like that when the nose drops. Then finish it off, get the rudder or the stick back, and get the stall to break if you're trying to get a full break and recover. There we go. Let's do another one here. I think we got some cloud clearance. We will pull the stick back. We'll get the nose up a good bit here. Let's see, about there maybe. Right about our 30 degrees pitch. Okay, airplane did not stall. It just dropped the nose and said, hey, I didn't stall. Do we get the stick back? And about there, pull it back. Keep her coordinated. Well, not coordinated, but level over the top. And it's stalled, and then I can let it forward. So, just getting at what I was getting at earlier, you gotta pull the stick back to get it to stall. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, now staying coordinated. So this is another one of the issues I've seen. We'll lose some altitude here again. We got our climbing done so we can spin down and not spend all day climbing back up for every spin. But I want to talk about coordination coming into the power on stall. So usually the two requirements that we need when we're doing power on stalls. First, if you're doing them to check ride standards, you got to do them straight ahead on heading, right? You got to recover on heading. So we need to keep the wings level. And of course we want to keep it coordinated because we want to avoid that scary spin out there that we're going to look at later. And so those two are mutually exclusive. You cannot, hopefully I said that right, you cannot just maintain coordination. You cannot just maintain wings level with one control. We're going to have to coordinate both the stick and the rudder together to get the airplane straight ahead and coordinated to stall. So I'm going to prove it. We're going to set full power. I'm not going to use the stick. I'm just going to use the rudder to try and keep the airplane coordinated, and we're going to see what happens. I'm not using the stick. I'm trying to keep it coordinated. Over she goes. Woohoo! Right? So if you're just trying to keep the ball in the middle, you're probably going to break it to the right in a propeller airplane like this. Let's do that again just to make sure we're seeing it right. Okay, I'm locking my ailerons. I'm not using them. Pulling back. I'm keeping the ball in the middle. I'm just keeping the ball in the middle. Over she goes. Okay, so that's not good. Now, let's try and keep the wings level with just aileron. We'll see how that goes. Okay, we're down at 6,000. That's good. We'll do it to the west here. Look around, make sure we're clear. Good, good, good. Okay, now, as we slow through about 70, I'll lock my feet. We'll forget about coordination. Okay, I'm locking my feet, full power. And I'm just trying to keep the wings level. We're slowly flat turning. Whoa, there we go. Over we go. Okay, let's do that again, just to prove it. Just to make sure we're not crazy. Not seeing something that's not actually happening. Okay, 60, locking my feet. Trying to keep the wings level, trying not to roll. Over we go. Okay, so, moral of the story, we cannot just use rudder or just use aileron as we come into a power on stall. We got to use both. Let me make sure I'm clear left, turn left. Okay, so, now, I'm going to keep the rudder in the middle with my feet, and we know that's going to be gentle right rudder, because the ball is going to be trying to go out the right. We also know that we're probably going to need a little bit of left rudder, or left, pardon me, let me start over there. We're going to need a little bit of left aileron to keep the wings level. And the stick pulls the ball where it's going. So if we pull the stick, the ball is going to go to the left, a little bit of right rudder, and we should be able to break it straight ahead. So now I'm going to coordinate and keep it level. Coming up through 60, looking off my wing, looking straight ahead, little right rudder, little left aileron. There we go, and we broke it straight ahead. Let's do that again, just to make sure it's not a fluke. Coming up. A little bit of right rudder. There we go. Okay, so we can in fact perform a coordinated wings level power on stall. Very easy. Now, let's look at the stick deflection of the ailerons as we do that. And I think what you're going to see, I'm going to turn to the left here where the wind is carrying us hard today, so we need to keep her pointed north or west as much as possible. Keep her coordinated there, Dave. Okay, we're clear around. Okay, so now I'm going to set power. I'm going to put my finger next to the stick, and we're going to see how much stick I have in by the time we break. So there's right rudder, there's left stick coming in. There we go, a little drop there. But about an inch travel of the stick to the left as I transition from 60 miles an hour up to the brake. That makes sense. Let's do it again. Okay, locking the stick there, 60. Little bumpy. Bump's messing with me. There we go. Yeah, inch and a half that time. Yeah, so if you watch people do power on stalls, say if you're a flight instructor, or you watch yourself do it, you'll probably notice that if you're braking them straight ahead, coordinated, you're working slightly opposite controls. You're working a little bit of left aileron and a little bit of right rudder. Just about guarantee it. Depends on your airplane. But yeah, you're going to have to use those to keep the airplane going straight ahead. So that's part of where I see some of the biggest issues with coordination in power on stalls, is people trying to use one or the other, or trying to solve the other one's job with the other control, trying to solve a rudder problem with the stick, or trying to solve a stick problem with the rudder. But they got to work together to be able to keep us going straight ahead. Anyhow, we got that. Let me get my notes back up here. Okay, now that brings up an issue of aileron in the recovery. which we're just kind of brushing up against here with how do we coordinate the airplane as we come into the stall, which we just finished looking at. But now we need to look at what happens if we let a wing drop when we do one of these power-on stalls. And so I'm going to intentionally let the wing drop to the right here, coming up, and I'm going to yank the ailerons to the left as we break over the top, which every flight instructor's probably seen. Our airplane's falling over and the student's pulling the stick to the side. Right? Not fun. Okay, so as we see there, and as the theory in the book says, the ailerons don't do us no good when we're stalled, right? So they're not lifting the wing anymore. In fact, they're doing the opposite. You're killing the lift on the wing you're trying to lift. And you're adding drag, which then pulls it around. So in that case, let me clear to the left. In that case, right, I crank the stick to the left, trying to keep the airplane from going to the right. And I didn't add any lift on the right wing. I just added drag and it pulled us around. So let's see that the opposite way. Okay, 6,500. This time I'll kind of convince it to brake to the left. Okay. And we're off to the left, and then I'm trying to work the stick around. Whoa, there we go, and there's a spin, or start of one. So long story short, once we stall, we need to pin those ailerons down. We need to quit using them because they're not doing any good. We can use a little bit of aileron coordinated with rudder to keep us level, keep us coordinated, as long as we're doing both of those together as we come into the stall. But once we're in the stall, no, don't want to do that, right? Because we're just going to induce a roll-off. Okay, so I think we showed that pretty good. And well, that does bring up one other point with that. So let's think about these power-on stalls if it breaks to one side. Okay, man, we were just getting kicked in the pants here today with this turbulence. Okay, so we're coming up, and I'm going to let it break off to the side a little bit. And pull the stick back, stall. Now, as it comes over, I need left rudder, a little right rudder, a little left, let the stick forward, and it's done. Now, if you were watching the ball on that, you probably noticed that we were not coordinated. And that's true. If you're trying to keep the airplane level and not break into a spin, you cannot do that coordinated. Why? Because the ailerons aren't doing us any good. So the only tool left is rudder, and the only way for the rudder to do us any good, let's see, we'll get it to brake to the left this time, I think. Alright, she wanted to brake ahead, well, I'll just kick it over. I'm holding it in the stall, the airplane's stalled, oh, right rudder, left rudder, right. There we go, I'm working it around. The only way to keep level at that point is the rudder, and the only way to do it is to be uncoordinated. So that's a risky place to be. But it's the only tool you have until you get the airplane unstalled. So you want to get that airplane unstalled again, get the stick forward. Now you got your ailerons back, and then you don't have to rely on that. But yeah, the rudder's your only friend at that point once you're in the stall. Okie dokie. Now I'm still getting kicked around here, and I've been out the last couple days practicing all this stuff for you guys and gals, so that my head wouldn't spin too much. But I can already tell this ain't gonna last forever, so we better get some useful spins in here before I start feeling sick. So I think we beat our power-on stall subject to death pretty good. And now let's talk about the spins. So the first thing I want to do is just do a spin, power off spin, for you to see happen, right? And I'm not going to say a word. I'm just going to let it happen for the cameras, and then we'll recover, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll go in and start getting into technicalities. So for me, I'm just going to experience this. We're probably going to do about 2 turns. Carb heat, idle, trim. Okay, so we're slowing down. Let me make sure I look around here, make sure I'm clear. Yeah. Okay, so the airplane's in slow flight. We're doing 50 mile an hour. And we come back into the stall. There we go. Kick the rudder. Over we go to the left. Airplane's into entry. And now we're into the spin. Oop, and she did not really like that. And recover. Then I'm going to use my power and my speed to recover. Get some altitude back. So sometimes, depending on if you're doing these in turbulence, you'll kind of go through some goofy air, and it'll make the spin not really be a spin. So that one, she wasn't very happy about that one. We were also doing one to the left, and this one prefers to spin to the right, so maybe we'll do that again. But we saw that, you saw the nose down, you saw the recovery, and we'll just do another one here to the right. Get a good proper spin out of it. Okay, idle, trim, blowing down. Pull the stick all the way back. Kick right rudder, over she goes. We're in the entry, now we're into the spin, around she goes. Opposite rudder, neutral rudder, stick forward, check the ball. Ooh, there we go. And recover. Yeah. Okay, so we saw the three phases. Now, if you were sitting here in the airplane next to me, you'd feel some different things. The first thing you'd notice, after the initial shock wore off, is that the entry is slower than the spin itself. Make sure I got my barf bag here. Don't want to use it, but you never know. Alright, we got it if we need it. Okay, the entry in this particular airplane is slower than the fully developed spin itself. Okay, once it gets into the spin, these Luscombes really wrap up and start turning. The other thing you saw is that the nose was really down, right? We're really steep nose down attitude when that's happening. And believe it or not, that's actually a really good thing. That's a normal spin. If we were just sitting here looking at the horizon as we're trucking around in a circle, that's what you call a flat spin. And you're in big, big, big trouble if you get into a flat spin. So we want the nose down. It's actually a good thing. Even if it's terrifying the first time you do it, you want the nose down attitude. Okay, so we saw it. Okay, now let's look again. We're going to kind of talk through the falling leaf here, which we were just looking at earlier when we were working the rudder side to side. And we're going to kind of let it hint at a spin. But we're going to stop it with opposite rudder. And you can see that the moment it breaks and starts wanting to spin, we can already start correcting. Right, so here we come back on the stick, kick left rudder, the airplane's like, let's spin to the left. And I'm like, right rudder, nope. And it's like, let's spin to the right. Left rudder, nope. Let's spin to the left, nope. Right, we call this the falling leaf. And so yeah, we can work it back side to side. It's uncomfortable, balls all over the place. But we can absolutely stop it from spinning pretty quickly. Okay, so that's the falling leaf. Work on the rudder side to side while we hold the stick back. Okay, the next thing, I'm already going downhill a little more. Blech, I'm feeling a little worse. We'll see how much longer this lasts, like I said. The next thing is going to be a pretty early recovery. So I'm going to let it flop over on its side, but then I'm going to recover. And you're going to say, well, why are you doing that, Dave? Well, that's probably about where you're going to be if I had to guess. If you get it past the falling leaf point and it actually starts going over into the incipient phase of the spin. And when it does that, right, we can still use PARE. Power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite, elevator forward, and recover. And when I was coming up as a flight instructor, I did hundreds of these. And so I would take students up and in a spin-capable airplane. And it was a different kind of airplane than we usually flew, so I could usually kind of reel them in with, hey, let's go fly this different kind of airplane. And then we would talk about spins, and we would really just do spin entries and recoveries. I wasn't really, even as an instructor with the endorsement, I wasn't really comfortable yet flopping it over and getting a bunch of turns out of it. I just wasn't yet, right? So I did a lot of recoveries early in the spin itself. I'd let it get, headed down, but then I'd recover. And once I did a couple hundred of those, then I felt more comfortable in actually letting it get into the turn and just sit there and, as we would say, auto-rotate, right? It's just sitting there in the spin, going around. And once I did that, or once I got to that point, and that was about the time I bought this Luscombe here, was about the time that, I'm 7,000 here, kind of an unideal altitude. About the time I got to that, I bought the Luscombe. And I just went out and spun the darn thing every day for like a week. And I felt awful the first 3 or 4 days. And then by day 4, 5, and 6, I was having fun. And I learned a lot about spins in that time. A lot of little interesting details, even stuff we won't talk about today. But it's not really till you get over your motion sickness that spins really become something that you can, analyze and pick apart. And then I became fully comfortable with actually going around. And yeah, so we're just going to look at what does a kind of just a spin entry and a recovery look like. That's something you might practice as you're getting more comfortable with it. Okay, so we're idle. We're coming back. Put the stick. Hold the stick all the way back, left rudder. The airplane flops over, and about here you're like, nope, opposite rudder, and recover. Okay, pretty simple. Let's do it again. We'll do it to the right this time. Airplane flops over, opposite rudder, point at the ground, stick forward, rudder neutral, check the ball, dive out. Okay? So not even, you could just call that a half a turn entry, right? You're just getting into the beginning of it, and you recover right away. After you fully got the nose down attitude, you recover. So if you're trying to work into these, maybe you're dealing with motion sickness, it's something you can use just to get more comfortable with it. Okay. So that's the early recoveries, and then the fully developed recovery. So we're going to talk through that one. Good thing I still got my bag here. Here I might need it after this one. Okay. So here we go. We're going west. I'm going to let it get to about 2 turns this time, and then I'll recover, try and talk through what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm coming into the stall. Hold the stick all the way back. Pin it back. Left rudder. Airplane flops over. We're pretty much, all right, we're in the spin. 1, 2, opposite rudder, neutral rudder, stick forward. Look to the horizon. Try not to barf. Bring in the power. Climb away. Ooh. Trim the climb. Okay. So hopefully you saw that, and you can go back and rewatch it if you want to see that happen again. You kind of be talking through what I'm doing there. So that would be a fully developed recovery. You're in the spin, you're auto-rotating, you're just going around, nose down, trucking, and then opposite rudder, neutral rudder, stick forward, recover. Okay, now we're going to look at a full power on stall spin entry. I think I'm getting close to the bag, folks. All right, we'll see you guys back in a minute. All right, folks, I'm back with you. I took one for the team. Oh, man. Whew. Okay. All right, I know where I'm at. Again. Okay, so we left off, I think we said we left off with power on stall spins. And man, we are just still getting our rear end kicked today here. Anywho, so let's look at a power on stall entry to a spin. So here we're going to need to use PARE to its fullest extent. Power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite, and then elevator forward. So, yeah, there's town. Okay, I know where I'm at. So, full power. We're going to do this to the right. She likes to go to the right.
Victor, back taxi runway 35. Pleasant traffic.
Stick back, opposite rudder, pin the stick back, over she goes, power idle, in the spin, opposite rudder, neutral rudder, stick forward, recover. So that's what you want to avoid when you're doing power on stalls. Okay, now let's talk about slipping and skidding spins, and I think this is probably one of the most interesting parts to spins, especially when it comes to flight instructors and students and trying to avoid that base to final turn, stall, and spin. So in the past, when we were looking at coordination, we saw what the rudder does. We know it yaws the airplane. And when we're wings level, that rudder, that yaw happens left and right, purely side to side. But we go idle, and we put the airplane in a left turn. We now see that the rudder, it still does the exact same thing, left and right, but that left and right now has a vertical component. So now we use the left rudder, we're pushing the nose down into the turn. We use right rudder, we're picking it up. And the interesting part about that is that we humans, we naturally are going to go for the stick to stop that nose from climbing or descending. And so that can either help us or hurt us. So let's look at, let's say we are using a slipping turn, which we should be using in the pattern. So we're clear left, turn and left. We're in a left turn, and we use right rudder to slip, okay? Now my first instinct is the nose is coming up because the nose yawed this way, and my first instinct is to push forward. And in the Luscombe here, let's see, I'm really not having to push much at all. It depends on the type of airplane. But there we go. So we're in this bank. I'll kind of steepen the bank up and around we go. Okay, now the interesting thing about this is if we try to stall here, try not to do this too quickly. There we go. The problem is now the airplane to spin has to pick itself up and over, and then off it goes into a spin. There it goes. Recover. Ugh. Okay, so there's two parts to it. One, if you're in a slip, you're going to be trying to avoid it with forward stick pressure because our brain sees the nose come up even though it wasn't the pitch that made it. And we're going to pitch forward to try and keep the airplane from the nose coming up, whether we realize it or not. The second thing is that in a left bank, slipping to the right, the airplane has to pick itself up and over to the right, which we just saw, to spin. So it is banked the wrong way in the way the airplane wants to roll. And so that gives us more time, maybe not a lot of time, but it gives us more time to correct what's happening. Now we're down here at 4,500 feet. I think I still got time for altitude for one more. And let's look here at the skidding spin. And so this one is going to be in a left bank. And now we're going to cheat with the left rudder, which is going to push the nose down deeper into the turn. And then our first instinct, if we're not paying attention, is going to be to pull back. And now the problem is that the airplane is going to be banked off to the side in which it wants to spin, and it's just going to boom. It's just going to happen compared to what we just saw with the slipping spin. So power idle, clear around. I'm going to recover early because I'm feeling sick. Okay, we're coordinated, we're in the left bank. We look out, we see, oh no, we're overshooting final, and we start cheating with the rudder. And then we see the nose drop, and we hit the ground, I don't know, about here. Bad day. Bad, bad, bad. Right, you don't want to do that at 500 feet. Okay? So, that's why a slip is your friend in the pattern, and a skid is your enemy. Two reasons, as we just saw, two compounding reasons in the skid. Not only is your first instinct to pull back, which heads towards the stall, but you're already banked in the direction that it wants to spin and you're just helping it out. Versus those two things, the nose being up and the airplane having to flop its over the other direction, help you in the slip. Okay, so we saw those, and that concludes my formal list here. We're going to head back towards Wahoo, and if we might get some more altitude, maybe we'll do some more here as I talk on the way back. And I just want to pause real quick as we're heading back, and I just wanted to say thank you to all you folks who've been watching, and I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me that that folks are willing to watch me out here flying my little Luscombe around. And thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving comments. It really means a lot to me. And, oh, goodness gracious. Goodness, I picked the wrong day for this. Ha! Yeah, so it's really cool that that this little airplane can be a benefit to others, not just to me flying it around. So I think it's really cool that we even have YouTube. We have the internet. We can post stuff like this, talk about it, learn from it. I know YouTube was huge in me learning a lot and getting into aviation. So yeah, I'm on a bit of a ramble there, but thank you. I really appreciate those of you that are watching. And so, goodness, getting kicked again. Anywho, so we're headed back here. We've looked at different flavors. Unfortunately, we didn't get to as many spins as I'd like to today, but so it be. And I hope you found this useful. And like I said, I hope you go out, if you've never done these before, or if it's been a while, go out and get some training, right? Go get in a Citabria, or get your 172 down into utility category, or whatever you need to do, and go out and practice some spins and be safe. And for you flight instructors, practice stopping a spin entry early, intentionally. And maybe that'd be a good thing to go through here. So, but we've got just a little bit of time left. So I'm going to have to play student and instructor here. But I'll get at what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be a bad student. Clear left, turn and left. And normally what I do with a flight instructor candidate is I'd get about here, and I would be hoping that they'd be like, oh no, my controls, right, take over, stick forward, opposite rudder, opposite aileron, go wings level, and then recover, right? I can do it to the right, and then a right turn. I'm the bad student, I start cheating in, I'm like, nope, 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 take it, right, stick forward, opposite rudder, wings level, recover. That's your job as a flight instructor, is to be there to stop that from happening in the pattern. And then hopefully to go out and give your students enough training to recognize that that's happening and then avoid it while they're in the pattern. So we're looking for that excessive yaw rate, that nose falling down into the turn. And then we immediately take controls. We don't stop to explain, we just take the controls. We correct the situation, we handle it calmly, then we get on the ground and we talk about spins and what was happening there. And I'm very thankful, I can say this, I'm very thankful to be alive, because as a fresh private pilot, I'd had my certificate, I don't know, a couple weeks, if that. Took some friends flying. Was headed into another airport. We were going to go in and have dinner at this other airport. And long story short, the Swiss cheese model started to stack for me. And I don't know how close I was, right? Because when you're early on, that sort of thing doesn't always register. But looking back on it, I was probably way closer to a base to final spin than I'd like to admit, right? It was kind of a goofy situation. I had a tailwind on base. I overshot final. I was trying to correct back hard. and I cheated with the rudder. I know I specifically remember pushing on the rudder and thinking, maybe this will get me around the turn. I don't know how much I pulled. I don't know how much, how close I got to the margin, but I know that I was pushing it, right? And that's not a good place to be. And I'm thankful to be alive. Thankful that I didn't stall and spin there with two of my best friends in the airplane. And so that's where training and familiarity comes in to help us avoid those potential pitfalls. Okay, we got to get back into Wahoo here. Let's see, we're about 6 miles. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 77903, 6 miles to the northwest, inbound Wahoo. Okay, don't need the heater anymore. Ten minutes ago, 280 at 8 gust and 15, 10, 14, 3010. Okay, really nothing's changed since we took off. Cloud's still going the same way. And here we go. But anywho, so it was interesting there when I was retching my guts out back there. And hopefully I cut most of that out so you don't have to see it again. But it's crazy how when your body takes over and physiology is working against you, how little and how useless you are as a pilot, right? So, you know, just a few minutes ago, you know, I can tell you, throwing up like that, my situational awareness dimmed, right? And it was basically like, keep the wings level, keep the pitch right. I know roughly where I am. Let me get through this and come back, right? So, unfortunately, physiology can come along and punch you in the gut sometimes without you wanting it to. Okay, Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is a 45 entry to the left downwind 02, full stop Wahoo. Alright, we'll take a look-see and see how we're looking. So we'll put to land on 02. If it's not looking good, then I'll just come around and put it down on the grass, and the grass is greening up. Not the best grass runway in the world here, and I haven't been out driving it for gopher holes yet. But the nice thing is we do have a nice spot between the taxiway and the runway that's concrete, and I can usually get it down on that and stopped pretty good if we got a stiff wind. And the wind is right down the grass right now, so we'll see. If this doesn't go well, we'll just go around and we'll do that on the grass. Okay, clear left. Wind's going to be pushing us from the tail, so we don't want to get in too close here. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 77903 is left base 02 Wahoo. Oh yeah, that wind is carrying us, so I'm going to keep the nose out, not angle in too close yet. That socket's sticking out. If I'm not liking this, we're just going to do that go around and go to 3-1. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is base to final 02 Wahoo. Fast. A little too fast there, nose up a little bit. Slip. Slips in the direction of the wind already, which is nice. I don't have to reverse the slip. 75. Coming up short. I need a squeeze of power. Feeling pretty stable so far. Feeling good, feeling good. Keep that left wing down. Not bad. It ain't over till it's over, though. Time to put the tail down. Ah, that was a non-event. Okay, good. It's interesting, though. Ooh, that's not good. Keep it down, Dave. Anywho, keep her going straight. In the Midwest here, it's not very often, but a couple times a year, we will get just a really stinking fast, strong wind out of the west. And if you look at runways in the Midwest, there are not a lot of runways that are exactly due west. There just are not many of them. And so it's always good to know where you're going to go in one of those circumstances. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 77903 is clear of 02, taxi to the hangars, Wahoo. Where you're going to go if you get caught out in a west wind like that. And believe it or not, I only know here in roughly the Omaha-Lincoln area, I only know of one east-west paved runway that I would go to. And it's 60 miles, I think it's about 60 miles east of Omaha, right? So I certainly wouldn't want to go into that really strong wind to go find a place, so I'd probably want to turn tail and go downwind. And so, you know, do you have the gas to go do that? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, right? Because even just a little bit of crosswind angle when the wind is blowing really stiff can still put you outside of your crosswind limits. And so it's always nice to kind of have a plan ahead of time of if this wind goes nuts, which it sometimes does here in the Midwest. Not right now, but when it does, where am I going to go? Okay, in fact, the wind seems kind of chill at the moment. It was the turbulence that was getting us. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 77903 is crossing 1331 for the hangars, Wahoo. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is clear, all runways at Wahoo. Okay, the wind's out of the west, so I can shut down to the west. That makes my shutdown easy. Okay, I turned the fuel valve off a little earlier. As I've said before, no mixture control, so we just turned the fuel off in advance. Well, thank you all for coming along today. You probably don't want to see what's going on here with the what happened earlier, so we'll just sign off here. Thanks for coming along. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you found interesting and maybe spin behavior you've seen in your airplane. And fly safe. We'll talk to you next time.